That's exactly right. Okay.
And with the students, we don't let them chat, but maybe we'll let you guys chat. Our first student ambassador meeting, we had some boys come on, and I'm like not paying attention. And all these boys are coming on. I'm like, you guys, this is so awesome. We have so many boys that are joining now. And they ended up, what were they doing? They were like swearing. It was not our group. It was not our crew. And my group knew that was going on. And I'm just like, this is so cool. All these boys are wanting to be student ambassadors. So they were punking us and we didn't know them at all. But we don't think that that's going to happen with you guys. We're going to give people a few minutes to get on, but we're going to start talking a little bit about what we've done so far, where we're going. We love having you guys here. It's so fun because throughout the week, whether we're working on events in Logan, Northern Utah, Central Utah, and St. George and Cedar City, it's so fun to now be able to like be on emails with you guys and text groups with you guys. So if you are in any of those areas or you're looking to do a meet and greet, do like one girl and a woman in Davis is going to host something. We have someone up in Brigham City hosting something, St. George, Cedar City. Like it's so fun because you guys are like in charge here, right? Like you guys are taking full ownership of this and then you're grouping together and doing incredible things in your district. So we know that we're just here to gather and to like help bring people together. And you guys are going to go and actually create this change and be totally awesome.
Yes. And I see Leah Spencer on. She's helping head an event up in Logan that we're super excited about. We're so excited to be with you guys tonight. This is really neat, especially because it's December and it's such a tricky time to get away. So thanks for escaping for half an hour to hear. You will not be disappointed.
You will not.
We know Emily Bell Freeman well enough to know that she's never left us disappointed. Some of the stories we've heard several times, and every time I'm like, what's going to happen next? So good.
Yeah, totally. And this will be recorded. So we'll have it. A lot of people were DMing and saying, I am going to be at a performance tonight, but can I listen later? And so, yes, we'll be putting it on YouTube and we'll be sending it to everybody. You guys, we have 313 of you guys. How incredible is that? It is so cool. I think we're covering like 35 districts out of the 41 districts, which is really, really neat. I want to jump really quick just into the call for action or call, call to action. It's late. You guys know I'm normally like in bed right now and not yet. Okay. So call to action. We are in the holiday season. So many of you guys are leaning in and helping and giving back in your communities. One thing that we talk to you guys about doing is calling your school, going to your school and asking, do we have a food pantry? What do we do for our kids who do not have access to maybe regular meals? What are we doing for our kids that maybe don't have everything that they need at home? And then reaching out to that person. I will say 90% of the time it's a woman. And so a lot of you guys have gone and you've called your school and said, who's in charge of our food pantry at the school? Can I talk to her? So we're not really talking to the principal yet, and we're definitely not talking to the superintendent yet about teen centers, but we're reaching out and we're being curious and asking questions about what's going on in the school. So I have gotten so many incredible stories back from you guys around kitchen tables, sitting and making period packs, putting together hygiene kits, incredible stories about you guys doing a tour of your school pantry that a lot of you guys had never been in, starting to hear stories of, oh my gosh, I didn't think my school had any needs. And we serve 50 families. This is my school. We serve 50 families continuously in our food pantry. And then what we're asking is, what is our school doing for the holidays? Where are we helping? What are we doing? Who are we partnering with? What are the organizations that this school is working with? And how can I help? The question is always, how can I help? How can I get people involved? And then the key and the call to action is that we as a group are going to show up after the holidays. And you are going to like people at the pantry, at your school are going to be like, wait, what? Someone came to help in January and February and March, and they're asking how they can help after the holidays. And that's where we make the difference, right? Emily Freeman and I were talking, Emily Bell Freeman, I can't just say Emily Freeman, and I were talking, and she's like, these women need to be the experts in their school. And she nailed it. You guys can be the experts at how your school gives back. And it's asking questions, it's asking to help. And by the way, this costs no money. I am helping, like, I guess you could say, match 200 families for Christmas. In those 200 families, I'm not spending $1. I'm just helping organize. So if I have something like time, but I don't have money, I am actually more valuable than someone who just has money to give. So if you're not in a space or season where you have money to give back, that's actually not what we want from you. We don't want donations. We want organizers. We want people that say, how can I help? How are you doing it now? Who are the partners that you're with? What's going on in your pantry? How many McKinney-Vento students are you serving? I'm going to leave you with 2 stories and then let Emily go. But as we lean in and we ask these stories, these kids' stories in our school will not end with us. We cannot have, I just got a story from an incredible woman in Richfield, and this like brings tears to my eyes. And she's like, Kristen, I work at the seminary. I didn't know a lot about what's going on. I started asking questions and I realized that we have all of these families. One in particular, I just learned about. This woman started to understand that one of her students was eating dog food. One of the students was eating dog food. What if we didn't ask? What if we just kept in our bubble and we didn't ask and we were just, all of us here on this call have maybe a little bit of extra time or resources or talents to not let those stories end with those kids. We are here to be voices for the voiceless. We're here to ask, how can I help for those who cannot help themselves? These are students who do not have a choice in the matter right now. We have to stand up for them. This is personal. We hear stories, our stomachs are in knots half of this work because it's really, really hard. The stories, I'm going to leave you with one more, and I shared this on stories, but these are the kids that we're helping. And so many of you being here tonight is so, so impactful. So we were talking, rural Utah is in trouble. There's a lot of hard going on in rural Utah. And I ask you to start researching it, look it up, and we'll be talking a lot about it. But the superintendent there said not too long ago, 5 kids kind of half dressed, half in their PJs, walked into school one morning. 5 kids, junior high to elementary school. And they said, we think our mom is dead. We think our mom is dead. They had dressed for school and they had walked themselves to school. The police or someone from school went and she had overdosed on the couch. The school is the safe place. These kids sleep in school because they are not safe at home. This is the reality of many Utah homes, and we can be the voices for these kids. So thank you for being here. It is more impactful than you know. I'm so grateful for you guys caring about something that maybe doesn't affect you. It actually changes the whole world, and definitely our state and your neighborhoods and your schools. So thank you so much. I'm going to introduce Emily Bell Freeman, who is just a mentor to me. I look up to her in so many ways. Everything she says, I'm like, hold on. I actually have to take notes, even we're just chatting over the phone. And I think it was kind of meant to be that we were talking about brisket one day and we ended up doing teen centers and having her really advocate for us. So Emily, thank you for being here. My guess is that there's not a lot of introduction needed for you. So I'm going to let you take over. Thank you.
Well, that is awesome. And I'm so excited to be here. Kristen and I have been talking about this for weeks, but this afternoon when we were chatting and I was really excited. We've talked to a lot of different groups. We've been up to the legislature. We've talked to influencers. We've talked to donors. But this is the group I am the most excited to actually talk to because we are action on the ground. That is who this group actually is. And without this group, we are actually nothing. So I think this is the group I am the most passionate about. Kristen and all these other ladies, they have got jobs with the legislature and with the donors and with all of these people. But I am a champion for the people in the trenches. And that's because that's where my most profound experience has been. So I'm going to tell you my story quickly. And if you wish you knew more about my story, I'm going to give you a couple places where you can go and like lean into it in detail, because what I more want to give you is what action on the ground actually looks like. And I want to talk about that part of this tonight. So I don't know how many of you have seen The Blind Side. My story is very similar to The Blind Side story, like really hauntingly similar to The Blind Side story. And the interesting thing about that is my story started before The Blind Side movie came out. It actually came out 3 years into our story. And I had some friends invite me to go and watch that movie. And I had no idea what it was. I didn't even know. I love Sandra Bullock, so that's why I went. And I sat in that theater and I watched that story unfold and I sobbed. Like, I'm sure everyone else in the theater was like, why is this lady so touched by this movie? But I was living that story. We didn't know Garrett would go into the NFL when I saw that, but I was living the beginning part of that story. And in my mind, to see that someone had actually made a difference was so profound to me. It gave me so much hope. And it also gave Garrett hope, who is the boy who we brought into our home. He watched that movie every week for 2 years because it also gave him hope that he could actually become something from where he had come from. So we live in Lehi, Utah. We live in just a middle class neighborhood. What would just be like normal for Utah. If you drove through my neighborhood, it would look really a lot like every Utah neighborhood you've ever driven through. And down the street from my house, about 9 doors down from my house, was a family who was struggling, but you would never have known, except for that their one son of their 6 kids was just wreaking havoc in our neighborhood. And he had a hard time going to school. He was failing almost all of his classes. He was vandalizing our neighborhood on a regular basis. He was getting in fights all the time. He got kicked out of school for drugs. He knew the Lehigh Police Department. They knew him on a first name basis, and he knew them on a first name basis also, which is never a good thing. And we got invited into a situation with our faith community where our bishop, the leader of our faith community, said this family is falling apart. And he did something I've never seen a leader do before, where he took a group of 10 of us and assigned each of us to one member of the family to try and provide watch care for that member. And Greg and I were at the very end of that room. And the only one who was left by the time they got to us was Garrett, because nobody else wanted him. And that was our introduction to bringing Garrett into our home. What that looked like at the beginning, he was in 9th grade. He was a big kid. He had a really foul mouth. He had a lot of addictions. And he had a big anger problem. He had very severe learning disabilities that made it impossible for him to ever do homework by himself. And he started coming to our home. We decided we would provide homework help and dinner for him 4 nights a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that got a little overwhelming for us because he's like having a giant in your home. So that's what I want you to imagine. Like the door doesn't just open. It like, even still now, when Garrett is home, the entire house knows Garrett's home. When he walks, my house shakes. He costs me triple the amount to feed than my regular family does. He just is like a lot. And at the beginning, that was really tricky to navigate. And so I actually had 2 other moms in my neighborhood who volunteered to help. So we would provide dinner and homework help Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We had Monday and Thursday, and the other mom, one of them had Tuesday and the other one had Wednesday. And as time went on, this became a 4-year commitment for us. And as time went on, we also balanced out how we took care of Garrett. I had time, but no financial resource. So mine was a time commitment, and we became the safe house for Garrett. If there was any blowups in his home, he knew he could walk out the front door and walk to my house, and he could sleep here, he could eat here, he could unload here, whatever he needed. That was my job. One of the moms was in charge of all of his school supplies and his sports supplies. She did everything. If there was anything he needed, that was her job, besides dinner and homework on Tuesday nights. And the other mom, who was the Wednesday night mom, was in charge of clothes. His entire wardrobe, all of his shoes, whatever he needed, that was her job. And we just balanced each other out for 4 years, you guys. We did this for 4 years. When Garrett graduated from high school, there were 3 moms who wanted to walk across that stage and get that degree with him. One of my favorite graduation pictures of all of my kids is a picture of Garrett and the 3 moms, and all of us just, like, we did that thing, you guys. I don't know how we did it, but we did that thing. And if you want to know more about his story and some of the heart of his story, Kristen's going to actually have him on probably in February or March. So you will actually get to hear the story from him, which is so good. But if you look up Utah's Blind Side on YouTube, you'll be able to learn more about that. Or if you go to the podcast All In, that you can find on all podcasts, and you look up Garrett Bowles, Natalie Bowles, or Emily Bell Freeman, that story will come up and you can hear it in a lot of detail. And when Garrett comes on, he will share that story. And I love when he tells his story, because there are a lot of profound lessons there. But what I want to talk about tonight, and especially because we are just getting this thing up and on the ground, is I want to talk about what it looks like to actually be what I am going to call the help. And the reason why I'm calling it that is because I had the opportunity to speak with Garrett at an event last week. It was for a really large construction company in Utah. If I told you the name, a lot of you would probably know who they are. And we were speaking to their employees. When I walked in to speak, I sent a video to the person who I work with, David Butler, who some of you will know who he is. I sent a video of the room because everyone was in their construction clothes. They had on their like yellow reflective jackets and their orange jackets. And I sent a video and David texted back and he was like, is this in your wheelhouse? And I was like, maybe not, but all you can do is your best. And I got up and spoke. Garrett told his story for 10 minutes, but his life is a little bit tricky right now because he's injured. He plays for the Broncos. He actually went to the NFL. If anybody doesn't know his story, it really is the blindside story. He actually even plays Michael Orr's position. And for many years, he wore Michael Orr's number. Which is so weird. And we don't know why that happened, but it just actually did. And he plays for the Broncos. And he broke his leg earlier this season, and they're really strict about the recovery process. And so he could only speak for 10 minutes because he had to go in with the trainers, which meant I had to speak for 40 minutes to the construction guys by myself. Everyone, does anyone feel nervous about that situation? And we had a good conversation. And then it was so cute because at the very end, this guy came up. I actually want to show you his picture. And thanked me. A lot of the guys came up and thanked me, which was so cute. But one of the guys came up and he said, I hope you can see this over the phone. I mean, over the thing, but I think you'll be able to. he said to me, okay, if I tip this, can you see him okay in the picture? So he came up and said to me, he had been on drugs for 20 years. And he's 5 years clean, you guys. He's a single dad of a 3-year-old boy. And he came up to talk to me and just wanted to let me know he was recovering and how well he was doing and what was happening in his life. And then he was like, your story really touched me. And it's because a lot of people will meet someone like me and they'll hear my story and they'll get all involved for 10 minutes. And they always say at the end, let me know if I can help. Whatever I can do to help this, I really want you to make it. I really want you to get through this. And so if I can help in any way, just let me know. And then they never show up again. And he said to me, I hope your son realizes you are the help. And I was like, I've never been given a better name in my life than being the help. And he's like, when I heard you tell that story, I realized you actually are the help. And that's what we need. That's what we need more of, is the help. And I want to talk about what it looks like to be the help. One of the other things he said that I'm just going to share with you, because it was really a profound learning experience for me, is he said, you know what you did that allowed him to change his life is you taught him to tell his story without shame. And no one had ever told me that before. And I was like, that's actually like really powerful to realize that part of what will be healing for these kids is to learn how to tell their story without shame, because their story is actually going to help somebody else get through a really hard thing. And part of what we can do is help people recognize that their story is real. It really is happening. Things really are this bad, but also you can rise above it and they can become the help if we teach them well to come out of this. So I want to talk about what it actually looks like when someone says you are the help. What does that look like? And one of the first things I want to tell you is, one of the things that I learned from Garrett is, and I've talked about this a lot, but Greg and I, for our whole lives, were like, we want to do foster care. We want to go adopt kids from Russia. We want to go into Africa and build a well. In my mind, like, helping required me to actually leave and go somewhere and do something big. And the most profound helping experience of my life was 5 doors down from where I live. And I don't think we recognize how big the need is in our actual circle of influence. Whatever your circle of influence is, there is a need there. And so one thing that I had to learn to do was to live with eyes wide open in the circle of influence that is mine. And I still do that. That is still now part of my nature, is to be living with eyes open to see the need. And we practice that. That's something we have to practice. It doesn't necessarily come natural for us because we feel like everyone is fine, because we're all really good at looking fine. And so it's just learning to live with eyes wide open. The second thing that happened for me is I got Garrett, and that was like a lot going on. And the more I got into it, and I realized, like, he wasn't just failing one semester, he was failing 4 semesters. And like, it wasn't like a 6-month recovery, it was like a 4-year recovery. And it was very overwhelming to walk into it. And what happened for me is something that will probably happen for a lot of you, especially if you're problem solvers or fixers by nature. Because in my mind, I was like, this cannot be this hard to resolve. Like, how long could it possibly take us to get all your homework done? I'm just going to go down to the school. I'm going to talk to your teachers. I'm going to figure out how to make this work. We're going to figure out your absences. We're going to do all these things. Well, what happened is, when I walked into the school and I started trying to talk to people, I started hitting a lot of roadblocks. And it's because how I thought the system should work and how the system actually worked was not the same thing. And I could have gotten really frustrated and given up. Or I could have come home and been like, that school is ridiculous. And now you just are going to not graduate because that's going to be easier than trying to figure out whatever is happening here. And what I realized is I had to change the way that I thought if I was going to help Garrett succeed. And so there's a couple things that I did that I think would be super helpful for all of us who are volunteering. And the first thing is to go into your setting, your school situation with this mentality. Teach me. Teach me what this looks like here. This is where I see the need. This is what I see as the problem. I'm not going to come in here and tell you how to fix it, right? It's never going to work because that school is so much bigger than we are. So to go in and be like, will you please teach me? Teach me how the pantry works. Do you call it a pantry? What do you call it at this school? If there are kids who are not eating, who would I talk to about that? I want to know the name of what that looks like. I want to know the name of the person who runs it. And I want to know exactly how does that work in my high school. What if someone doesn't have clothes? Do you do something about that? What does that look like? What if you have a kid who has missed school 10 days in a row? Who's the person who's helping with that? Do they need volunteers? Is there something that I could do to help there? It would be really good to be educated in what are because they have privacy laws. Sometimes the school can't tell you things that actually would be really helpful for you to know. And so for me, I would just say to them, I am willing to help. I need you to actually teach me how I can. So I don't know the rules. I don't understand the laws. I don't know what's happening, but I just need you to teach me. One of the best phrases that you can say, and I keep this up on my kitchen windowsill when it's not Christmas, because not only does it help at school, but if anybody has in-law children or other family, I love to just say this: how can I help? Instead of coming in and saying, this is what we have to do, and if you just did this and what, if you can just step back and be like, we all see what the problem is. I'm just going to ask these 4 words. How can I help? And let that person who maybe has a better understanding of the legal issues, how the school is run, what their availability is, say to you, okay, actually, you could help us with this thing, is really, really helpful. So I think being able to go in at the beginning and just say, I'm in this for the long term. Teach me what I need to know about the system, and then tell me, how can I help? What could I do to make a difference? And I'm not just coming in December. Like Kristen said, I'm going to be here in January. I'm going to be back in February. I'm going to show up again in March. Like I am invested in this process. I feel called to it. I feel drawn to it. So put me to work. Tell me how I can help. One of the things I learned is what Kristen talked about a little bit. And that is, people don't always need financial help. Sometimes there are financial resources through the school, through the state, or through other donors. What there is a great shortage of is time. And it's people who are actually willing to give time. What changed Garrett's life was not money or clothes. It was people who were like, I can drive you to football practice. I can sit with you and do your homework. I can meet you at the school if you're having a really hard time and talk things through. It's people who will show up. What those kids don't have is someone who consistently shows up. So once we get the teen centers running, the fact that on Wednesdays from 1 to 4, the same lady is going to show up every single week is going to make some kids say, I like to stop in there on Wednesdays because I actually love seeing this lady. And I know she comes every Wednesday. And I need something constant in my life. And so it's just setting, maybe you only have 2 hours a week. Guess what? That's fantastic. Just as long as you can say, I will be here every Wednesday for 2 hours, perfect. That's what we need. We need time. I just want to end with this one thought. And for those of you who are Latter-day Saints, you might hear a word that has been said a lot in the last month. It's a word that is Hesda is the word, or Hesed is the same word. Russell M. Nelson talked about it just barely. It's a word I learned in Israel, actually, last April when I was there. And we were walking down the street. I was with an Israeli man who is Jewish. And as we were walking down the street, we were going to a place that I've read about in the Bible 10,000 times. It's called Bethesda. You might have heard of it before. It's the place with the 5 porches. And the man who's waiting for the water to be stirred is there waiting. And Jesus will come and he's like, I'm waiting for the water to heal me. But Jesus is like, oh, well, hold on, I'm right here. That's the place where it is. When we were walking there, the Israeli man said to me, okay, and then we'll turn right and we'll be at Bethesda. And I was like, oh, hold on. Why did you just call it Bethesda? Because that's not what we call it. And he's like, oh, Bet means house of, which I was like, oh, I've actually heard that before because of Bethlehem, how we say it. But it really is the house of bread. Bethlehem, Lehem is bread. And so I was like, well, what is Hesda? Because now I'm dying to know what it is the house of. And he's like, oh, Hesda, Hesed is grace. And grace is one of my favorite words. If you don't know me, you wouldn't know that about me, but it is one of my favorite words. And it's something I've studied for years. And because I'm Christian, grace has a meaning to me that comes because of the cross. And so then I was like, but now I'm talking to this Jewish man. So I'm dying to know what does grace mean to someone who is Jewish? And so I was like, could you teach me about what grace means to you? Like, what is Hesed? What is this house of grace? And the man said to me, oh, it's action on the ground. That's what it is. It's extreme kindness. It's somebody who goes out of their way to love someone with a deepness that is not normally expressed. And he was like, it's not a word as much as it is an action. And when I left from that place, I was like, that's so interesting, because if you know the story of what happened there, that man had waited 38 years for a change in his life. 38 years. He waited for someone to take him to the water. But one day, someone actually showed up who was action on the ground in that place. And he changed that man's life. And it makes me think to myself, I want to live Hesed. I want to live that. I want to be action on the ground. I want to be deep kindness every time I walk into a situation. And I feel like that's what we get to be. We get to be the person who shows up into the story. And we get to actually make a difference that will leave an imprint on our heart and on their hearts. I just want to end with this really quickly. It has been Greg and I's great privilege to relive this story over and over in our life. We talk about the story of Garrett most often because it was one of the most profound learning experiences, but we've had 9 different kids who have come through our home and gone through this process of change. In fact, our neighbors always tease that we need to put a sign up on our door that says Freeman Home for Wayward Boys and then vacancy underneath whenever we have an open room. And it's something we felt called to since we were very first married. This has been just part of our story. But one of the things that was really interesting for me is one of the other boys who came through our home and lived at our home and experienced a life change. His name was Ian. And we were driving home one day, and he happened to come in and live with us after Garrett had was on his mission. And we were driving home from St. George one day, and he said to me, you know, this whole time I thought you were sent for me and Garrett. God sent you for me the same way he sent you for Garrett, the same way he sent you for, and he listed all these boys. And then he said to me, but have you ever thought to yourself, maybe me and Garrett were sent for you? And I actually never had thought that before. And it was so interesting. People talk about like at the end of your life, you have that moment where your whole life like flashes before your eyes. I had that experience while I was driving that like immediately I was like, thought of everything that I had learned because they had been in my life. Ian was the boy who, when he first moved in, he moved in when I was speaking in Oregon at a timeout for women. Megan called and said, there's a kid from the lacrosse team who wants to turn his life around. He knows what Garrett did. He has all his stuff on the porch and he wants to know if he can move in. And I was like, sure, just put him in the room upstairs. When I get home on Sunday, we'll figure out what are we going to do. And so that night I was making our grocery list and I said to him, tell me what you like to eat, because it makes it easier for me if my kids just were like, get this, this, this. You guys are moms, so you know. And he was like, oh, I don't need a lot of food. I can go 3 days without eating. That's how I live at my house. And I thought of moments like that. Like they just flashed through my eyes. I thought of moments when I sat in a principal's office and begged for someone to have another chance to just stay at school for 2 more weeks. Let us just try one more time to not hit someone for 2 weeks. And if we can make it, can we stay? I thought of sitting in the advocate's office at Westlake trying to figure out how do we make up for all those F's for the last 3 years? And is it even possible? And has someone ever even done that before? I thought of all the times I've been in a counselor's office trying to work through, if you're not the guardian, what conversations can you actually have with a teacher? I thought about all the IEPs that I've sat through. I thought about pleading with the police department. I thought about DCFS and the conversations that I had that was like, please, if we become a safe house, can they still live at their home? Because I don't think they can actually function if they get removed from the family. Like in my mind, all of a sudden I was going through drug rehab situations and all of these things that I had learned that I actually would not have learned if I hadn't had that experience. And all of you are probably like, yeah, I don't want to learn those things. Right? I don't want to walk through that life, but what it taught me was compassion and empathy and how to love and how to help and how to live with eyes wide open that I actually would not have learned in any other way. And I feel like I am a better human being because I understand hurt and loss and anger and hunger and need in a way that I had never recognized until I met those boys. And my kids now are, one's going to be a doctor, one's an accountant, one's a special ed teacher, and one's a seminary teacher. All 4 of my kids are in the jobs they are in because of the profound effect Garrett had on their life. And it pushed them into the professions that they are in now. And it made them able to succeed in those professions because of the experience that they had in our home. So for how hard it was, the reward was equally as great. And I think that's what you have to look forward to when you walk into a situation where there is a lot of weakness there will automatically be a law of grace. And you can anticipate that that would be true of your story when you enter into a situation like that. So I'm just really excited for what this is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now. And I'm really excited about you and what you bring to this project, because the money we are so grateful for, and the legislation we are also so grateful for, but the help, the people who are going to actually show up in someone's story, that's going to be the most profound part of what is about to happen. And I'm just super grateful for all of you and your willingness to join us in this adventure.
Emily, you are incredible. Never a dry eye after I hear you. Thank you so much. I do feel like when you push into the unknown, you are blessed with more bandwidth than you think you might have. And to me, it's always for me, but what you just ended with your kids, what I do is half for my kids. Like, and we're always given that bandwidth. And sometimes it's exhausting and hard and hard and hard and hard. And then, good. But you guys are all here and leaning in and interested in caring about something that may not affect you. And we're so, so grateful for that. Your words are inspiring. I always leave better after listening to you. So thank you so much. I know you guys have a lot to do tonight. Hopefully you're going to bed. My admonition is always don't scroll on Netflix or Instagram, turn off your phone and go to bed. You'll wake up so much happier tomorrow morning. Thank you for being here. Reach out. Like I said, we're going to be in Northern Utah, Southern Utah, and Central Utah. We have our dates out. Hopefully you guys have all been on the email and you guys can, be at those events because we want to see you face to face. That connection is really important to us. And we're so grateful for you. I truly believe that the way that we change Utah is through the women on this call and mothers on this call. And that is the way that we start making that ripple effect. And I see it already. So thank you so much. Have an incredible night. And we're so grateful for you.
Thank you, everyone.